Biology. All right. How are things going? Hope things are going well. Um, Before we get started, I think I should say Daniel, Mark, Twizzle. Okay. All right. That's much better. So this is continuing in chapter 8. We're in chapter 8, sorry, 18, chapter 18, part B now, which is Class Mammalia, also known as the mammals. And even though this is half of the chapter, I'm still going to split this section into three parts, is what the plan is right now. Um, yeah, it's just, there's a lot here that is just interesting. Like, as far as course material is concerned, there's not a ton. But when it comes to all the different kind of animals that we're looking at and all the interesting and fun and cute and adorable and whatever other kind of adjective you want to use there, videos that there are that we can watch about these kinds of animals, there's a lot that's there. Now, I'm not going overkill. For each like group of animals that we're looking at, usually it's either zero, one, two, or three. And most of them are like 2, 3, 4 minutes long, kind of a thing. But anyway, yeah. So we're gonna have this one, and then one more this week, and then I'm planning on one more video next week, and that will wrap up chapter 18 for us. And it also keeps me being able to keep things a little bit shorter. I should be able to keep this one in the 30 to 40 minute range. Yep. All right. So the mammals. First of all, some of the key characteristics of class Mammalia. And first of all, they have hair. And that's actually unique to this category. Mammals are the only animals that have hair. Oh, as far as hair is concerned, there are a couple different types of hair. The two broad categories are under hair and guard hair, and some people would include whiskers or those like special sensory kind of hairs like whiskers as kind of a third category, but I just have two categories here, under hair and guard hair. So under hair, it's usually a little bit more fluffy. Think in a lot of ways, underhair and guard hair is kind of similar to the down feathers and the contour feathers of birds, but different shape and structure, but similar in function. Underhair mainly serves the purpose of insulation, helps the animals stay warmer. Whereas guard hair provides some of the coloration, so it's the guard hair that will provide the camouflage, for example. It's types of guard hair that can help with sensory stuff like the heckles on the back of the neck of a dog being something that when those hairs are upright, they're like super sensory. And so if some animal tries to attack by biting or grabbing the back of the dog's neck, the dog really senses it well, stuff like that. And yeah, so hair functions, first of all, is insulation. We talked about that a little bit. And on that topic, let's do video question number 3. Video question number 3. Question is, some hair of polar bears, deer, and moose have what property which helps them stay warm? So, polar bears, deer, and moose, their hair has a certain property to it, and this property helps them stay warm. And the answer is hollow hair. Hollow hair. Yeah, those are three of the only animals that have hair follicles where the shaft of the hair is hollow on the inside instead of the hair follicle being solid. And what that does is it prohibits the transfer of thermal energy. It prohibits the taking in or releasing. In the case of these animals, we're usually talking releasing of heat that much better, and it helps insulate them that much better. All right, so insulation. Next is camouflage, and this is probably something that you're familiar with already, of just various types of animals and how their stripes or spots or some variation or combination of those two makes them a lot harder to see in their natural environment. I'm a little bit harder to see standing against a lightly beige wall. Anyway, so yeah, camouflage. Next, special sensory. I called it by that name. Things like whiskers, where, yeah, they are hairs, a type of hair but a very special and different kind of hair that is very much serving a tactile or touch sensory function. Um, and then you have general sensory things like the heckles of a dog that I mentioned, or even just like the hair on your hair. You can totally feel it when like a little fly lands on your arm and just moving because it's only moving the hairs, but you can really feel that. I'm glad that we can feel those kinds of things like that. That also makes me think of I guess it would classify as a prank that you can pull on cats. I'm overall very much not a fan of most pranks because I think most pranks are cruel. At the very least, not humorous to the person who's on the receiving end of it, the person or thing. But I know sometimes some people really enjoy it and they get a good laugh out of it, depending what the prank is. And there's this prank that I don't think it doesn't appear to cause any harm or anything like that. And what you can do is you can take some scotch tape, maybe like a foot or foot and a half of scotch tape, and run it from like the top of a cat's head down its neck and then down its back. And what it sometimes can do, it works sometimes, it doesn't others. But what it sometimes can do is it can make the cat think that it is sensing that it's brushing up against the underside of something. And so what it does is it crouches down like as low as it can get and it tries to inch forward while it's like as far crouched down as possible because it feels that those hairs on its back are being disturbed and it thinks that it is crawling underneath something. Yep. Anyway, and then special protection, like things like quills of a porcupine that, they're hair, but is serving a function other than the ones listed above. They are more of a protection kind of a thing. Okay, moving on. Next key characteristic, mammals produce milk. That's actually what they're named after. The class Mammalia is named after the mammary glands. Those are the milk producing glands that the animals have. And exactly what that looks like as far as how the young get the milk, it varies a bit from type to type. And some of that varies mostly whether you're talking placentals versus monotremes and marsupials. But we'll talk about those later. All right, and then another key characteristic is they have specialized teeth. Now, this is not unique just to mammals, but it is, mammals are one of the main groups that have this. And three categories of teeth that, depending on the animal that you're looking at, some animals might only have one or two of these and not others. Some animals might have all of them, but like one type is really pronounced. As far as humans are concerned, we have a pretty well balanced arrangement of all three of these kinds of teeth. And there are incisors, and these are flat, thin teeth in the front of the mouth for gnawing or biting. Okay? These are, yeah, those flat ones. You're mainly 2 to 4 incisors. I'm trying to remember if it's 2 or 4. Anyway, at the top and the bottom, and they're really good at in a sense like slicing through something that you're biting into. And then canines, these are just out from your incisors. They are rounded, pointed teeth toward the front of the mouth for tearing. And you might recognize that term canine for dogs, basically, canine. And that's because they have very pronounced canine teeth. They have very pronounced teeth for tearing into meat, ripping meat, basically. And then molars, usually thick, squat teeth in the back of the mouth for grinding and chewing. Yeah. All right. And then a four-chambered heart. Now we saw that birds have four-chambered hearts. Reptiles almost kind of have four-chambered hearts. Reptiles and amphibians. But here, yeah, so birds have it, but mammals also, and birds and mammals are the only four-chambered heart. So we can still say that a key and common characteristic, well, characteristic of all mammals, is that they have four-chambered hearts. And some other characteristics. Respiration and circulation. So mammals breathe via lungs, and but in addition to that, mammals have a diaphragm, and the diaphragm is a muscle that runs across the middle of your torso. It separates your thoracic cavity, where your lungs and heart are, from your abdominal cavity, where your bunch of your digestive um, organs are. And the diaphragm pulls down on your lungs, and that's how you're able to fill your lungs with air. That's something that if we had been doing fetal pig dissections this year, when you get to opening up the body cavity of the fetal pig, the diaphragm is super prominent and it's really easy to see. That dissection, by the way, plus like a couple other things that I make optional, probably, I can't guarantee it, but probably sometime this summer, I'm going to make that an optional thing, and I'll be there and I'll provide the supplies and the specimens and the instructions and things like that. That for those of you who would like to come in and spend a few hours doing some dissections like that, I'll do whatever I can to make that available for you. Anyways, that's the diaphragm. And then the larynx. Now, this is very similar to the syrinx that we saw with the birds. The syrinx is the bird's song box, and the larynx is the mammal's voice box. We have one, and I think I can say that all mammals have them, but I don't know for sure if it's all mammals. But when mammals do all their various kinds of vocalizing to communicate with each other, or to communicate with other species of like threatening, of like, hey, don't mess with me, bro, kind of stuff. That is the larynx that is usually doing the work. And then a large brain to body size ratio. And in other words, for whatever species of mammal we're looking at, for the size of its body, mammals in general have very large brains. And that serves a few different functions. Partially, it's instinct. A lot of complicated and intricate instinctual behavior that mammals have. Also, memory. Here's where we're getting now. There's memory that a wide variety of other kinds of animals have. Um, some more than others, but generally speaking, a lot of the mammals have very good memories and ability to form and to retain memories. And then problem solving ability. We'll see a little bit about that with, I think there's one that I have, this complex problem that ravens are, either ravens or crows, I get the two mixed up sometimes, are able to solve, whereas having to use tools and to figure out what sequence to do things in order to solve a problem to get some food. And then very strong senses in a lot of the animals. And that varies quite a bit from type of animal to type of animal. But, you probably think of the sense of smell being one thing, just how amazingly good of a sense of smell a lot of dogs have. I've wondered before if a lot of dogs are like, well, it's like you would think with as good of a sense of smell as they have, that there's all sorts of stuff that they would not want to smell like they do, like other dogs' body parts and stuff like that. But it must be they don't find those different kinds of scents disgusting like we do, that there's their sense of what smells good and bad, it just doesn't work the same as us, I would assume. Speaking of sense of smell, I'm pretty sure it's the bear that has the best sense of smell out of all animals. I want to say it's something like 2 or 3 times as good as the best dogs are in their sense of smell. But then some birds, really great sense of hearing, really great sense of or eyesight and like night vision kind of stuff. And then you get into like the sonar kind of stuff that bats can do, and yeah, all sorts of cool stuff as far as senses are concerned. Moving on. All right, reproduction. And here's where we get to the 3 subcategories of the mammals. Broadly speaking, mammals break into placentals, marsupials, and then you can't see it on this slide, but then monotremes. So, and these are all based on how the young develop. And so, placentals, we have here that the fetus is carried in the uterus till late in development and provided oxygen and nutrients via a tissue called the placenta. So the placenta kind of serves as the conduit, the transportation link between the young that is developing between the baby and the mother. And so the baby's blood flow goes by there, and the mother's blood flow goes by there, and oxygen from the mother is able to diffuse in the placenta into the baby's blood flow. The baby is able to get rid of waste material and is able to get rid of carbon dioxide and things like that. And that happens through the placenta. And then very late in development, the baby is born. And this accounts for approximately 6,500 species of mammals. And then the next category is the marsupials. And it's similar to placentals at first, but then immature young leaves the uterus and crawls to a pouch where it finishes developing. So it starts out in something kind of like a uterus with something that is kind of like a placenta, though some would describe it more like an internal egg yolk kind of a thing. And then part way through developing, much earlier than with the placentals, the young leaves the mother's body. And depending on the species, sometimes something will happen like the mother will like lick a little groove in her fur, and that helps make it easier for the young to follow its instinct to crawl from where it left the mother to the pouch, where inside the pouch the young finishes developing, and that's usually where the mammary glands are for the young to receive its food supply as it finishes developing. And this has approximately 330 species. The last I checked, it was about 300. It was 334, at least one site, one resource where I checked. About 70% of marsupial species live in Australia, but the remaining 30% are in the Americas. Most of those are in South America. Some of those are in Central America, and depending on where you look, we have either one or two marsupial species in North America, and that is the opossum, the American opossum. But other examples of marsupials are kangaroos, wallabies, koalas, opossums, wombats, and Tasmanian devils. And the next slide, I have some pictures of what those are like, and then we'll have just a couple of videos highlighting some of those. So, starting at the upper right, we have an opossum with her young, and then bottom right, a Tasmanian devil with some of her young, and then bottom middle, a wombat with her baby. Wombats can be so cute. There's a video coming up in just a little bit, and just wombats seem like they'd be adorable. Anyway, bottom left, koala bear. And then top left, a wallaby. Wallabies are basically kangaroos. They're just smaller versions of kangaroos. So speaking of that koala bear, let's do video question number 5. Video question number 5. Koalas eat so much eucalyptus that they often smell like what? So eucalyptus is a tree. Koalas eat the eucalyptus leaves, but eucalyptus is also a very common ingredient in cough drops. And that's the answer, cough drops. Yeah, koalas eat so much eucalyptus that oftentimes if you could get close enough to them to smell them, it would kind of smell like cough drops to us. Okay, next. A video.
Grey kangaroos live out on the relatively well-watered grassy plains. They are among the most sociable of all Australian marsupials. But living in groups can lead to problems in getting on together. Last season's joeys are fast approaching independence, which means that their mothers will soon be ready to mate again. Males use their sense of smell to find out if a female is sexually available. and will court her for several days. Having found one who seems to be promising, a male stays close to her side to try and ensure that he and no other male mates with her. The most dominant male is likely to be the one to father most of the next generation, and that is something worth fighting for. Joeys also fight, but it's just play boxing, a way of learning skills that will be important in later life. But it's not always a fair fight. Fortunately, this little one still has mother to see off the neighbourhood bully.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny how that third one came in the middle of the fight. And yeah, there's like videos that you can also run across of things like a golf course somewhere in Australia, and these guys are going along their golf court and they're pulling up to where there's to their green, and there are two kangaroos boxing on the green where their golf balls, where they just hit their golf balls. And yeah, it's got to be something to see in real life. There was a term that came up there that relates to video question number 4. Video question number 4. You know what? I'll do that in a moment. Nothing else. You don't have this like subscribe, subscribe, subscribe hanging out like that. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, I'll start this one just a second. So video question number 4. What are male, female, and baby kangaroos called? So this is 3 different answers, all for number 4. The male kangaroo is called a boomer, B-O-O-M-E-R, boomer, has taken on a new meaning in recent years. Female kangaroo is called a flyer, F-L-Y-E-R, flyer, and the baby kangaroo is called a joey, J-O-E-Y, so boomer, flyer, and joey. This one, as far as I can tell, this is just somebody's home with their backyard, and they have, looks like at the very least, a kangaroo, a dog, and 3 lemurs. And they have this big stuffed hippopotamus hanging for the kangaroo to play with, and that's kind of what you see. But then some of the lemurs wander in as well, and it's just quite the pet collection. Definitely would not be legal in California. dog's like, enough of this, man. I'm getting out of here. Lemur, meanwhile, is like, man, I want to play too. And what is especially an interesting collection there is lemurs are native to Madagascar, which is, big island off the east coast of Africa. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Next, I'm trying to remember if this is the wombat or the Tasmanian devil. We shall see.
It roams the night, bellowing blood-curdling screams in search of dead and dying prey. And when it tears into flesh, it's with some of the most bone-crushing jaws on Earth. This fiendish fighter may look cute, but its name says it all. The Tasmanian devil. Tasmanian devils, as their name suggests, can only be found in one place, Tasmania. This Australian island's forests and dense foliage allow a resting devil to lay low by day. But by night, the same landscape becomes a shrieking stalking ground. Tasmanian devils are the kangaroo's crankiest cousin. Like most marsupials, they start as tiny specks in their mother's pouch. They don't get as big as their fleet-footed relatives. Tassie devils only reach 2 feet and weigh just under 30 pounds. But what they lack in size, they make up for in strength. Devils' huge heads hold powerful, crushing jaws, and their bite is even worse than their ear-splitting bark. The Tasmanian devil has the strongest bite force of any living mammal on Earth, capable of ripping through flesh and bone. The devil's bite force comes from a powerful upper body design. The Tassie's massive head is disproportionately larger than the rest of its torso and supports an unusually prominent and powerful mouth. To date, Tassies have killed no humans, but inadvertent encounters with devils can end in bloodshed. One of the only ways to observe them is in protected animal parks. It takes determination, something head mammal keeper Tim Faulkner of the Australian Reptile Park knows firsthand. Come on. His routine devil checkup quickly turns into a howling scuffle.
Hey, settle down. Go on.
Anyone who studies Tassies up close risks painful run-ins with muscular jaws that work like a snapping sling.
So you'll see that they've got a very large, lumpy jawbone. And most of that is muscle. It comes right up over the top of their forehead and attaches at the back of the ears and at the bottom of the ears and allows the pressure of the jaws to close.
So that was the Tasmanian devil one. Yeah, I would assume that you're at least kind of familiar with the Tasmanian devil character from Looney Tunes, and while he doesn't super look like them, the behavior and the sounds are not that far off. All right, next one. This is the wombat one. He's cute. got to be both a really cool job to have at times, but also pretty sad from the standpoint of I bet it's got to be really hard to say goodbye to the animals sometimes that you've cared for so much, you've like helped raise and everything like that. Video question number one. Video question number one. What was the. Oh, yeah, wombat. Wombat. I actually wrote down wallaby. What was the wombat's name in the previous video? So, that wombat's name was used quite a few times throughout that video. I'm not going to give you the answer. Instead, I'm going to say if you can't answer that off the top of your head, you probably should have been paying a little bit closer attention, and you'll have to go back and rewatch to get what the answer was. So, number one, what was the wombat's name in the previous video? All right, next. We move on to the monotremes. So we talked about the placentals, and then the marsupials, and now the monotremes. And the key characteristic here is they lay eggs and incubate them like birds. So, eggs now outside of the body. They help keep the eggs warm, like birds. But when the young hatch, they are nourished by the mother's milk, which they, usually at least, lap off of the mother's fur. So monotremes are usually referred to as the egg-laying mammals. And there's only currently 5 species. You might see 4, depending where you look, but usually people would say there are 5 species, and they're all in Australia and New Guinea. There used to be some, as far as we can tell, there used to be some in South America, but now they're all in Australia and New Guinea. And there is 1 species of duck-billed platypus, and there are 4 species of echidnas. And we'll talk a little bit more, and you'll see what an echidna is like. Okay. So here we have some pictures. On the left-hand side, those 2 pictures on the far left, those are some baby platypus, or baby platypuses, or the least common is baby platypi. And then down below, on the bottom left, you have an adult platypus. And then in the bottom middle, you have an echidna. That's a long-billed echidna. Echidnas are very much like anteaters, but they lay eggs. And then on the right-hand side, 2 other echidnas, but shorter-billed echidnas. Okay.
Our exciting news is that we have twin baby boy platypuses that have just emerged. They've just gone for their very first swim. They're actually 4 months old at the moment. So when they're first born, they're actually only the size of a jelly bean when they hatch out of their egg, and they stay underground for 4 months just feeding on their mum's milk as they grow into platypuses that are about half the size of an adult now, but they're fully independent and they can look after themselves. They are a little bit different in personality, just to look at them. One's slightly bigger than the other, but one is quite active and bold and confident. He was the first one in the water. He explores, he's a really confident swimmer, and to hold, he wriggles all over the place. Whereas his brother took a few days to actually go into the water for the first time. He's more timid, and when you hold him, he likes to hide, and so we've kind of nicknamed him Shy. Watching the babies on the camera, it was getting a glimpse into a world that no one else ever got to see. I was seeing something for the first time that was still a mystery to a lot of us, and it was a bit like peeking in the nursery window for the first time and seeing these beautiful little babies that were just growing. As much as I would love to keep every baby platypus that we have bred here, unfortunately we just don't have the room for them. So we're going to be holding on to these 2 until about June, just to make sure that they're growing and they're very healthy animals. Once we've determined that, they'll go to another zoo that would like to have them.
Video question number 2. Video question number 2. The platypus is one of the few mammals that produces what? And the answer is venom. Venom. There are not very many venomous mammals, but the platypus is one of them. And you probably didn't notice because it was pretty subtle, but in some of those clips, you could see some fangs on the back feet or back flippers, kind of depending on how you view it and how you describe it, of the platypuses. And males keep those throughout the rest of their life. Females eventually lose them, but there are some glands right by those fangs that produce a venom. And as far as biologists can tell, a male platypus only uses those to attack other males during mating season. And so they don't actually use them to defend themselves against prey or for hunting. But yeah, they have these gnarly claws that also produce venom right by it. So that when they slash in, the venom gets into whatever it's attacking, which again appears to be just other male platypuses during mating season. Yep. All right, next we'll look at echidnas. These can be pretty cute too. All right, so that was an overview of mammals in general, then a little bit closer of a view at marsupials and monotremes. And then in our next videos, we'll be taking a closer look at the placentals, which is a lot of the animals that you think of. The aquatic mammals and the flying mammals and the what else am I thinking? The erect mammals and the gnawing mammals, the rodents, and yeah, so things like that. So that's kind of what's coming up, and I will see you next time.